is what my talk is about today. And I always call it a little bit of an old man's rant. Basically, it's because I'm tired of people declaring the demise of advertising, the death of advertising. And in my opinion, there's nothing further than the truth. And people keep hammering about how advertising is dying because people hate advertising. They keep talking about that. I completely disagree with this notion. I really think that what people hate is bad advertising. Nobody hated Pepsi's Cindy Crawford ad in the Super Bowl. Nobody hated Apple's 1984. Nobody hated Budweiser was up. And I'm all mentioning all these Super Bowl spots because I feel, at least in the US as an industry, is the only place that we're trying really hard. It's the only place where we're trying to win. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but when it comes to Super Bowl, there's a newspaper called the USA Today that ranks every ad from the best to the worst. And when you're working for a Super Bowl spot, you're trying to win the Super Bowl, to literally win the Super Bowl. It's kind of the objective of every agency that is working on that. And we're literally trying to win, but however, at the same time, in the rest of the year, we're not even trying. We're like stuck with very mediocre ads. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think for the UK, the equivalent of the Super Bowl is Christmas. Everybody's waiting for the Christmas spots. Everybody was waiting for the John Lewis ad. I was waiting for the John Lewis ad like I was waiting for Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. And it was an amazing ad, and people talked about it and waited for it. And to me, that's a clear indication that people like advertising. People keep asking, or they keep telling me, people watch the Super Bowl spots because that's where the eyeballs are. The eyeballs are also on the final of the World Cup, and nobody's watching the final of the World Cup because of the advertising. People are watching that because the ads are good. A great example from last year, it's a Tide ad, the campaign from Saatchi & Saatchi that won the Grand Prix in Cannes, won the Black Pencil here, and they try every year, but at the same time, when I look at the TV, the rest of the ads that Tide usually do, they're kind of mediocre. So I have the feeling that they're only trying at one specific moment of the year. And I myself, I keep asking, why? So I'm going to put like a pin on that question. I'm going to move back or travel back 25 years. I remember having this ad, or at least the Argentinian version of this ad, plastered in my bedroom walls. And it was competing for wall space with movie posters and with rock band posters. And for me, at that time, I wasn't remotely even interested in advertising, but to me, it had the same value. There were things that, to me, they were powerful, things that inspired me and things that I aspired to. And to me, a poster from Guns N' Roses to this Nike ad, there was no difference. There are two things that I wanted to be when I was 15. As you can see, the hair didn't work for the rock, so I stuck with advertising. And I studied advertising before even the internet. And I remember working at a digital agency before even Facebook. And throughout my career, I realized that those two events completely changed what advertising is today. And I think when it came to the internet and when it came especially to social media, it turned everyone into a critic, right? I remember being a kid and loving advertising and commenting with my friends. Have you seen that ad? That's a great ad. Like a kid would comment today on the John Lewis ad. Nobody was commenting, hey, have you seen that ad? That sucked, that was really bad. Nobody was making those comments before the internet and before social media. But suddenly, I feel that social media turned everyone into a critic. Now suddenly, everyone is a food critic, a film critic, and an advertising critic. And I keep making the distinction between even social media and the internet, because even with the internet, at least people, they needed a blog and they needed to put an effort and write long. Now you just need 140 characters to tear everything and anything apart. And that completely changed advertising as it is today. I had my first encounter with this world back in 2011 We did in Buenos Aires a beautiful activation for Coke. You know, Buenos Aires, by Christmas, like right now, it's like 40 degrees hot. There's no Santa, there's no polar bears. And we came up with this idea that the only place that Santa could survive in Argentina was inside a Coca-Cola vending machine. So we created an activation where anyone who would try to put a quarter and buy a Coke, the Coke machine would open and it would lead you into this winter wonderland. Nice, cute idea. We did the video. We posted on the internet, 5 million views in a week. The most viewed video by Coca-Cola worldwide at that time. But the first comment is, fuck you, Coca-Cola, you give diabetes to kids. And obviously, my first reaction was this. I wanted to break everything. And then I realized how much the context have changed. And I feel that we live in these days right now. Like, people use social media to rip everyone and anyone into pieces. A great example that I found out a couple of weeks ago, this woman is a tennis player, a Canadian called Jeannie Bouchard. She posted this photo on her Instagram with a caption that says, one of my favorite picks of all time. The guy behind, probably you know, Roger Federer, otherwise known as the GOAT or the greatest of all time. One of the first comments on the thread was, get a man who looks at you the way the GOAT looks at Jeannie. Immediately after, he looks at you like you're stupid. And stupid wasn't even the word. It was a much harsher word, which I was advised not to repeat, not to even mention, and blur completely. So we went with stupid. But there's something that caught my attention is the number of likes that each of the comment. Half plus one like the positive comment. Half minus one went with the negative. And obviously, as advertisers, we're subjective to this kind of critic. And I feel that as a consequence, we are growing scared. I feel that as advertisers, we became pathologically fearful of our own product. And I get it. In these social media days, one finger pointing at us turns into a million fingers. And suddenly, we're in deep trouble. I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine. He's the CMO of one of the biggest brands in the world. And she was talking to me about an ad that the agency put in front of her. And the ad was great. It was bold. It was provocative. It was amazing. And she said, I'm not going to risk my bonus over a piece of creative that two creatives want to run for their own benefit. And then I realized that that's the status of the industry today. And I get it. She has 2 kids. She has a family to maintain. And our jobs are on the line because the moment you make a little bit of a mistake, the world is on you. And as a result, the ads, the advertising that we're making has become invisible. I feel that when people talk about the death advertising, that's not the crisis that we have right now. The crisis that we're facing is the collective loss of guts, as I say on the title of my talk. I think advertising is in crisis because our ads grew uninspired, and because we grew scared. Our ads don't stand out. They don't stop people in their tracks. And I feel that lately making a campaign that goes unnoticed become preferable to being called out. Not getting attention is better than getting attention. And the result of this is that basically we're throwing advertisers' money away. We're flushing dollars down the drain. Personally, I'd rather not do advertising. I would advise brands to put their money doing innovation, data, analytics. There's a million things that they can do with the money. I still feel that advertising is one of the most effective ways to build a brand. But that advertising is based on the fact that you need to get attention to your brand. And if all we're trying to do is not to get attention, why do it in the first place? I'm constantly in meetings where great creative, it gets better. I know I'm ranting a lot, I promise. I see every day great advertising diluted by fear, great advertising by trying to tick all the boxes because we think that's the way to go. That's the way to avoid all risks. When when I keep thinking about this ticking all the boxes, I feel that we do advertising the same way that we could go to a casino, approach the roulette table, put a chip on every fucking number. We will never gonna win, and we will never gonna lose. But it will be a massive waste of time. And with that in mindset about thinking all the ticking of the boxes, I feel that there's an ad that kind of changed the history in advertising, but not for good. If you think about this ad, I'm not going to play it, probably you've all seen it. It's kind of the perfect ad when it comes to checklists. You can see every ethnicity, every age group, every sexual orientation, every profession. It's like every box of the that you can imagine was ticked, but the result was mind-boggling. And my theory is that Pepsi wanted to be part of a larger conversation. They want to join the Black Lives Matter conversation, but they wanted to join without having a point of view, without taking a stand, trying to piss nobody off. And that's why it backfired massively. We have an expression in Argentina, I don't know if you have something equally in English. The translation would be, you cannot be friends with God and the evil at the same time. That's what Pepsi tried to do. They tried to please everyone on a subject that was very touchy. Obviously, you know the result of the ad. Piers Morgan, Judd Apatow commenting it's the funniest thing he'd ever saw. Questlove thinking was an April's Fool troll. And my favorite that says, while this campaign is wrong, calling this ad tone deaf is also degrading for us deaf people. And I feel this kind of changed advertising because we were trying to be safe. We were trying not to get too much attention. And suddenly the ad that ticks all the boxes get destroyed. So there's no winning here. Remember, by the time that this ad launched, I was about to launch a campaign for LG that featured a big variety of racial ethnicities. And I felt, am I the next Pepsi ad? I was confident that our ads had a point of view and we were standing for something and we were saying something meaningful. But at the same time, I was scared shitless. Like my ad comes out on the back of the Pepsi ad and we get destroyed. Personally, I feel that ticking all the boxes is way riskier than having a point of view. Case in point, the Kaepernick ad that launched about a month ago. When I think about this ad, and forgetting all creativity, I don't think Nike winged it. And they say, okay, we're going to publish the ad and fuck it, let's see what happens. I think they ran their data, they made their numbers, and they realized that there was going to be some backlash, but the people that are buying the sneakers, the sneakerheads, their main target, and the people that are pushing the brand forward were probably very political, pro-Black Lives Matter, pro-LGBTQ rights, pro-social rights, and probably anti-Trump. And they took a stand, and they stood by Kaepernick. And while there were a lot of people burning all those shoes, when you look at the videos, you kind of see what kind of people were burning the shoes. They're not the average sneakerhead that dies with every Nike launch. So they put their money behind the people that they really, really supported. And I thought that was amazing. But from a creative standpoint, when I saw this ad, the ad has the industry, the PR equivalent to the second coming of Jesus. This was the best ad in the history of advertising. Personally, I feel this headline from 10 years ago is 100 times better, but the difference is context. Today, in a scared industry, having an ounce of courage is revolutionary. In the meantime, this ad happened in 2007. I remember seeing it. I didn't have internet. I didn't have Facebook. Well, I did have internet. I didn't have Facebook. I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have Twitter. And I took a picture of it with my brother's digital camera. But I don't think digital cameras even exist anymore. So finishing the rant and how do we fix the situation, I go back to that ad on my bedroom, and I feel that some of the words speak louder than ever. I think as an industry, the only thing that we can do is to collectively regain our courage, to create bold and unapologetic advertising instead of the invisible one. I think we can be the industry that we once were, the industry that gave birth to pieces that plastered bedroom walls, that created pop culture, that inspired the conversations we needed to have as a society, and work that not only shape our industry, but our world. I think we can do this again by not giving up and by not getting scared so easily. Haters will still be there as long as people have a keyboard in their hands. They're going to use it to rip us apart. But if there's one thing that I would like to leave you guys with today, is this. There's no escaping the hate. So just embrace it. Going back to that Jeannie Bouchard post and the half+1, when you translate that half+1 to the market, means that 51% you're the leader of the market. So what the fuck do you give if 49% of the market hates you? There will always be haters. They will always rip you apart. But have a point of view, put a stake in the ground. If you do something that creates enemies, it will also create supporters. We did that for a makeup brand, and I'm not meaning to plug our own work. We did it for a makeup brand that we came up with an idea of defining ourselves by picking an enemy. The current leader in the industry within makeup is the fresh, clean look. We went the exact opposite. We were supporting bold, big, runway makeup, and we made the leader our enemy. And just to show the campaign, we tested the campaign, and the campaign tasted 50-50. 50% of the people hated it with a vengeance, but the other 50% people stood by. And I was happy that people hated it. It means that it wasn't vanilla. It meant that it was moving the needle. So if advertising is really dying today, let's go down blazing. If we're about to die, I'd rather die shooting back than hiding. So I feel people keep attacking advertising because they think that we're not relevant. And truth is, when we make bland, vanilla advertising, when we tick every box, we are absolutely irrelevant. I think the John Lewis ad proves that advertising is more alive than ever. We just need to start shooting back. So I think we have a myriad of tools these days to make informed decisions, but just use those tools and have a point of view, even if it means having enemies. If you make enemies, you'll make supporters. To be honest, I'd rather have 50% of the people hating my work and the other 50% of the people standing by me than 100% of the people not giving a single fuck about what I do. So that's it. Short and sweet.